this video I'm going to be covering three topics, namely the autonomic nervous system, fear, and the narrowing of thought and action repertoires. Starting with the most simple concept, fear. Fear is an emotion that we experience when something registers in our attention as a threat. And the threat is basically anything that may damage us, attack us, whether it be our body or even our self-image. The most common example is when a dangerous animal leaps out of a bush, then you'll instantly feel fear because the fear is going to help you to either fight or escape from this animal. The emotion of fear is also commonly referred to as the stress response, and the system that is associated in the physical body with the emotion of fear as well as the stress response is the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is the system that regulates our energy levels, the way we behave in certain situations, and it basically has two modes of activity. These are called parasympathetic and sympathetic activity, and to give a main idea about these two types of activity, the one is more the rest recovery type of mode of activity, which is more active when you sleep, when you're sleeping, when you're resting, or just chilling, and the other is more active when you're highly active physically. And basically what it translates to in the body is that when you're in parasympathetic activity, which is associated with the rest part component, is that at this time your body directs more resources and energy to repair processes in your body, like recovering, rebuilding a muscle, or dealing with an injury, or having your immune system fight off some disease, or even digesting food. Sympathetic activity, on the other hand, which is associated with high activity and is also more activated when you feel fear and when there is a lot of stress in the environment, this system is more focused on the outside and exerting yourself. So when this system is more active, you have more glucose in your bloodstream to deliver fast and quick energy to your muscles. Your heartbeat is higher, your blood pressure is elevated, and you're more focused and more your attention is more directed on an object. Yeah, like usually with fear, your object is on the stressor, so you can deal with it. And at this time, those other recovery processes, they are not as active because they are not as important, because if you don't deal with this threat, then you might get damaged, or you might even die. So the short-term processes become more important of escaping that animal than those long-term processes of digesting food, repairing and rebuilding a muscle, fighting off a disease inside your body. All those things, they get put on hold, and all the energy are used to deal with the immediate stressor. In a natural environment, you need equal amounts of stress and equal amounts of rest and recovery. And both of these are important, because if you don't get any stress on your muscles, what we see is that the muscles begin to deteriorate, because if you don't use it, you lose it. That's the old saying. And if you don't lift weights, then your muscle basically begins to deteriorate, because your body realizes, oh, I don't need this muscle. Whereas if you use it, oh, I guess this muscle is needed. So then when you go rest, it builds and recovers. And the rest and recovery period, of course, is just as necessary, because if you don't rest and recover, then you're going to keep damaging your body, and it never heals or gets stronger. And the challenge with human beings and also other primates is that they sometimes can have a hard time shutting down their stress response. And this is what Robert Sapolsky talks about in his book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. He talks about how humans have chronically elevated levels of sympathetic activity, and thus constantly activate their stress response, and they don't seem to recover or get stronger. And what happens naturally is that you get a lot of health problems like cardiovascular disease, problems with growth, problems with memory. He goes into an entire list of all these detrimental effects, which basically covers all parts of the body. Also talks about diabetes, sexual dysfunction, digestive problems like getting ulcers and damage to your digestive tract, and even things like depression. Well, there are a couple reasons why this happens specifically with humans, because the title says zebras don't get ulcers, and that's because a zebra, he activates his stress response, but only for a very short amount of time when he's being chased by a lion or other predator, and then for a long period that follows that when he's grazing, and then there's just not much stress in the environment, then he can activate his parasympathetic and recover. But with humans, they have the ability, because they have these more evolved minds, they have a more vivid imagination, and they can really imagine a threat, and with imagining that threat they can trigger their stress response and sympathetic activity by just simply imagining something. For example, you may imagine having a talk with your boss or your manager and being all caught up in that, like, oh, what's going to happen? Or maybe your spouse or your child is late for something, and you start imagining all these really bad scenarios happening, and with that you can really create stress for yourself by something that only exists in your mind.